Hey, my name is Brandon and welcome to my house. Today we're going to do some brewing. What I want to do is show you a few of the different utensils that are used in brewing. These have all been in the tub for the last hour and a half, sanitizing in a commercial sanitizer called Iodofer. Here we're going to start out with a stainless steel pot. The stainless steel is highly non-corrosive and very sanitary, very easy to keep clean. That's why it's used in commercial kitchens all over the place. I have transfixed this brass fitting right here. It's a ball valve, which allows me to transfer liquids from one pot to the next. Here we got a couple plastic buckets, and this is an economic way to not buy 3 stainless steel pots because they can be quite spendy. Now this is my turkey deep fryer. This is the best utensil I have found in brewing thus far. I've transfixed a brass connection onto this also. It works out perfectly for a mash in that it has this container on the inside which holds the grains and actually suspends about 2 inches off the bottom, which make it perfect for collecting wort during the sparging process, which we'll get into later. And we're off. This is the first step of the process right here. What we're trying to do is get this 4 gallons of water to 170 degrees so that we can mash in. Now we're going to talk a little bit about ingredients while the water's heating up. The 4 ingredients of ale are water, yeast, grain, and hops, traditionally. So this recipe calls for 10 pounds of British 2-row malt, 1 pound of Munich malt, half a pound of crystal malt at 60L. 60L is a heating designation which directly relates to color. Now we're going to talk a little bit about hops. Hops have been used traditionally in brewing for about 200 years. This recipe calls for 2 ounces of Centennial hops, which is a light hopping. Especially on an average brew, 5-gallon batch, I will use anywhere from 10 to 15 ounces of hops. Now hops are actually a natural preservative. If you've heard of the style IPA, IPA was created when British troops were in India and the British wanted to keep the morale of the troops up. So what they would do is they would ship large quantities of ale and they would pack tons of hops in these kegs so that they would make it and preserve the ale over this journey. Now for yeast. Yeast comes in different forms. You can have liquid yeast, you can have powder yeast. Usually I start a yeast starter, but for the sake of this demonstration, I've decided just to use packet yeast. This is fermentage yeast. This, in my opinion, is the best yeast currently on the market. White Labs and Y Yeast are 2 companies that are really known for their liquid yeast, which cost about $7 a vial. This guy was about $4. This produces about twice the yeast as that found in a vial. Now this is Irish moss. Irish moss is a natural clearing agent. You add it 10 minutes to the end of the boil and it helps you get a nice clear, transparent ale. Now these are my little secret. In my opinion, these can make or break an ale, especially a high gravity ale. These are Servozymes. They're made by White Labs and they're little yeast feeding capsules. So what these are is these are yeast nutrients and they increase the productivity of your yeast. I will not brew a batch of beer without it. Alright. Now's the process where we're adding the water that we've heated up to 170 degrees into the mash tun to be mixed with the grains. Now what you want to do is make sure that you're adding the water, the warm water, to the base of the grains. You do that by submerging the hose. So this hose is completely submerged into the bottom. And what we're trying to do now is not flood the grains, but we're trying to get all the grains wet. So as I'm doing this process and letting the warm water soak in, I'm slowly mixing and seeing where the water level is with my wooden spoon. So now we're reheating water for the sparging process and the mash is well on its way. We got about 30 minutes to wait, so now it's beer time, buddy. So it's looking really good. We have a temperature of exactly 170 degrees. And we have a very even flow rate from the hot water tank, or what they call in a commercial brewery, the hot liquor tank, into your mash tun. Now this is the sparging wheel that I spoke about earlier, and what's happening right now is I'm trickling water onto the top of the sparge ring, and underneath it creates a rain effect on top of the grains. And what's really important at this point is to make sure that you keep about 1 inch to 2 inches of water above the grain bed so you don't get a stuck mash. A stuck mash is nasty and will pass on a lot of flavors of tannin and husk, which you don't want in your ale. Now the third step of this process right here is the sweet wort tank which is nothing more than a 5-gallon plastic bucket at this point. So what's happening is this is working as a natural filtration system. We're collecting all of the sugars from the grains, which are running down this tube and pouring into this bucket at the very exact same rate as the liquid coming out of the hot liquor tank. And what that's doing is that's giving a very balanced flow and maintaining the grain bed. So the goal is to make this whole process of filtering 6.5 gallons last about a half hour. And right now we're doing pretty good. Now that we've started our boil, we wanted to make sure it was rolling before we actually started our timer. So now that we do have a genuine rolling boil, it's going to last about 90 minutes. We're going to do our first hop addition. So I'm putting an ounce of Centennial hops. It smells delicious. Into the boil. Alrighty, it looks like we're done with the boil. 90 minutes. We've burned off or evaporated about 1.5 gallons, which is a good thing. We started with about 6.5 gallons of wort. Now we're going to transfer it over to the wort chiller. The wort chiller is basically a 7-gallon cooler, which is outfitted with about 25 feet of copper tubing. And on this other side, there's fittings. Basically, we hook a regular garden hose up to this and run cold water through it, and that'll chill the wort. Now, the importance of chilling the wort it really comes through in your finished product of ale. The faster you can chill the wort, the less off flavors you will have. So we're going to go outside and give that a shot. So here we are outside of the blessed home. This is the wort chiller, which we showed you earlier. We have a regular garden hose going from said spigot through the water chilling device. We're trying to get the temperature of the beer itself to 70 degrees. So now that we've chilled our wort to 70 degrees, we're going to pass it over into the fermenter. This is a funnel right here, which has a little filter at the base, which doesn't allow the trub or any of the other sediment that was caused during the boiling process to come through into the beer. Alright, so we're back. We gave it a rest last night. We pitched the yeast and then put the beer away in a dark location with a jacket on to make sure that it stayed nice and warm over the night. You want to make sure that your ale at this stage stays between 62 and 70 degrees. You can go a little higher than 70. I usually like to keep mine right around 68 degrees. You can see fermentation is already very active. I'm getting a nice steady stream of bubbles right now. At this stage, it's very important that light is not exposed to your ale. It can actually cause off flavors and do all kinds of nasty stuff. I'm thinking at the rate this is fermenting right now and how fast it's activated, this is probably going to take about a week to ferment out, which is great. At that point, we're going to push it over into kegs, hook it up to the kegerator, and throw a party. So thanks for coming along this journey. I hope you enjoyed it, and try it yourself. It's a blast. It's a very rewarding thing.